waiting for our guest for today, who also apparently is also in the lobby room somewhere. And yes, I was just waiting for him to join us on this stream. So thank you for joining already. And yeah, Al Farouk is going to tell us a lot more about our brothers connected in the diaspora. We're talking about people of African descendants or Black people worldwide. Where are they located? Um, Now we've been having lectures from our brothers in West Papua, and today we're going to hear also about the other islands where and how are their conditions out there, how we related. Because most of us are still divided in our geographical mentality and our mindset. But as we know, on the Pan African Daily TV, we're connecting all Black people worldwide. It means descendants of Africa on the continent and in the diaspora. So it's very important for us to have an overview of who we are, where they are, and where are we located. So when we have this kind of discussion, so we want to start learning about our history, we first of all have to know that we're divided and we're spotted worldwide. So yeah. Our topic for today is knowledge about our, as a matter of fact, it should be knowledge about our relatives out of Africa. But because particularly he talked about the 17 islands, which he will be treating with us today. So it was very important for us to mention that. So we're talking about, again, the African descendants, the roots, brothers and sisters, Blacks worldwide. What is our history? What is it that we have to learn about us or our relatives, out of the continent? So I think, yes, Farouk Al Wahab is right here with me, and I'll bring him live in the studio for us to continue this conversation. So, my diplomat, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Where are you currently now? Are you in Ghana or in Europe or in West Papua? Where are you currently based now?
I'm in Ghana, Accra.
Here in Ghana, Accra. Okay. I love to hear that. So how's the weather out there today?
Well, quite okay. We don't have extra hot. You can say average of about 28 degrees. In the afternoon, evening, it goes down a little bit. Ghana has, at this time, quite a favorable or a beautiful weather. Let me put it that way. In the morning, it looked a bit drizzling, but then it didn't happen. It didn't rain. So generally,
Yeah.
we have very cool weather in Ghana today.
Okay, that's fine. It's a pleasure once more to have you here, Al, and because the issue is not just about the awakening of Africans worldwide, but the connection. We are thinking that a lot of us are still not getting it right. And so when we have our brothers and sisters, like we had Professor Dr. Kaba yesterday, we also had Professor Bayina Bello the other day from Haiti. And so it's not just only about the awakening or the renaissance of Africans worldwide, but knowing our relatives out of Africa and those out of Africa, knowing those on the continent. And so that's why it's a pleasure. There's no other person that can treat this topic with us like you. And so it's an honor to have you here and lecture us and to mentor us on what we need to know as Africans. How related are we? How connected are we? How spotted? Where are we on the planet? We have been getting a lot of information that there are Blacks in Turkey also of origins and in Asia and in India and all of us. So particularly those on the islands like in the Vanuatu, the West Papua and Dominica, all these areas are what we want to educate ourselves on. So before we start the journey of the new Africa, the United Africa, it is better for us to know that we are one people. The color that unites us is our identity. What about that?
Well, good evening once again for having me on your cherished program, and then also to treat this topic with you and all of us to at least to learn some things that maybe we've left untouched or pretty much we did not learn from our school. Either we had bad history masters or our syllables didn't really put together some of the history which seems to be forgotten by we, the black man or the black race and the African. It is quite interesting that when it comes to the historical settings, Europeans know their history very well. Until now, today, European kids, at least, they will be able to tell you, secondary school children or secondary school students, university, even primary schools, they will be able to tell you the history of Europe and even still talk about the history of the other parts of the world, the Americans, and also the Asia, to some extent, the African. But interestingly, when you come to Africa, the history falls short. We have our histories to some extent even being doctored deliberately, or we have not made our students or the African, not necessarily a student, to understand the history of Africa. So it gives us a kind of distorted identity link, cultural, a breakdown of cultural tradition, which very much is stimulating and then bringing down the Renaissance and the Africa as a continent or African people. In fact, very, how do we call it, disintegrated. So with this disintegration, it has to do with the lack of common understanding of what our identity is and where we do come from. Originally, as Bob Marley once said, that regardless of where you come from, that was Peter Tosh, I think, that you should know that you are an African. And it is not just a joke, that is the reality. The Africa, as described by the Greeks, called the Melas, that is the black. Anywhere on earth that you find to the Greek, you find a Melas, that person migrated from Africa. And I think the Greek definition of a black and African is not in doubt, and they got it right. It is just because of the fact that some of us, some of you, some of the whole Africa, let me put it that way, due to the slave trade, which is one of the, let me call it the negative exercise, but who knows? We will not get deep into that because we've treated that topic severally. But if you look at where Africans are ported on the global map, where Africans are all over living on the whole map, if we were to put a black man together, one would say that it is the biggest and the biggest out of all. But because of the disintegration and where we find ourselves, it makes it difficult even to have a computerization or a total figure of how many black man or black women or black person, call it black man, on earth. It is a little bit difficult for us to treat that topic, but the numbers, we do know them. Now, the subject matter is Africa, and the blacks in other parts of the world are descendants of Africa. And then we call them in modern day terminology as diasporans. Yes, the African diasporan are all over. But in the context of the modern day understanding, we make diaspora only look like it's only the black, our brothers and sisters of the African American origin. They are the diasporans. But indeed, we have a huge diasporan community, which on the African continent, we seem not to care, we seem not to know. And that is a little bit worrying and very sad. Africa, out of the 54 countries, when you cut off the North Africa, where, and one would say that they also somehow originated or migrated from the Arab Peninsula, belts on the top of Sudan coming down to South Africa, literally we are blacks. Down to the Caribbean, with all the scattered islands there, they are all blacks, literally. And then when you go to a place where I would like to exert some energies, you're talking about the Pacific. Caribbean Africans have heard. We know of Caribbean because of Jamaica. We know of Caribbean because of Barbados. We know of Jamaica because of Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, Turks and Caicos, Guyana, and all that. But when it comes to the South Pacific, where we have a good number of Black descendants called the African, and to them, they also feel that they are outcasted because they feel that we don't mind them, we have nothing to do with them. Even not when that we put together the ACP, the African Caribbean Pacific, as a union and one umbrella group to bring all blacks, all mankind of blacks on under one umbrella. Still, that history, the punch of who and where the Pacific are located seems not to be a concern unless somebody happens to be in the region of that side, Malaysia, somebody lives maybe in Singapore, Indonesia. That is where the awareness of those who find themselves in Australia or New Zealand. Either than that, we on the African main block map, we don't care and we seem not to know what even are the countries located in the South Pacific. But let me just take us through the Caribbean belt, for instance. The Caribbean is direct. We know that the slave trade 400 years ago had excesses of some of the people taken out there on those empty land at the time, and thereby growing to become countries, but smaller pockets of countries where we have a lot of the countries who are blacks, Africans. They are completely detached. They don't know their roots. They don't know, all they know is their skin is black. Where they come from, some of them do not know. Those who connect home, one would say the Jamaicans. Those who connect home, one would say maybe the Haitians. The Haitians, to some extent, one would say that they have even today a language that home is from Benin in Haiti, today, modern day. They are Caribbeans, but direct descendants from the Benin Republic of West Africa. Not that only, a lot of the countries in the Caribbean, if you even trace by their names, if you go to the Jamaica, where I have treated the topic and mentioned that Jamaica have a city named Akumpon, which is also located in Ghana by name Akropon. It's just only the spellings. And Akumpon happens to be the names that we have in Ghana here, the Kofis, the Osays, the Pokus, and everything is still existing in Jamaica. So how would one expect not to believe, or one would not believe that anybody living on the soil of Jamaica come one way or the other from the African continent? But when it comes to the Caribbeans at the Pacific side, if you go and make a turn way back in the American through the Hawaii, enter the Oceania, look at the scattered islands, more than 1,000 islands, more than two in thousands of archipelagos. Each one of them, you have a black man living on that soil. Some to the extent have not even heard of African before. So you would find out and ask them, where do they come from? They have no news. They have no history. They don't know. It is the same way that we're sitting here. Our students have not heard names of certain countries before in the South Pacific. So today, I think it's interesting that we should be opening our minds, our eyes, and then we should be asking questions, and then we should be discussing the Africa and the black man, and how best, as you made mention of, the unification, the union, and the unity which we have to build. When we have that unity built, what it gives us is that we are doing what? Protecting our race. But we have not protected our race. Our race, we just let it loose. And that is where other continents have done, put their race together, and then we have deserted our race, giving ourselves or making ourselves enemy of one another because there's no connection, direct connection of the race. It makes us, even within Europe, we are like enemies to each other. We see ourselves and start running away from one another. It is because of the lack of common understanding of where we come from and which continent that we dwell, or where our forefathers were undoubtedly, where they lived, where they survived. The blood of Africa, where it is. Look, in the Jewish land of Israel, we have blacks, a black man in Israel, who are from what? Ethiopia. If you go to Israel, crossing to the Gaza Strip, and there, the Queen of Sheba house, there's no single Jewish white man living there, even though one would say the Israelis are white race. But indeed, we have Jewish who are dark-skinned called Ethiopians. What about the Nigerian Igbos? The Nigerian Igbos, we have Igbo Jews who are Nigerians, but they are Israelites and they are Jews. If you go to Brazil, a whole Brazil, the Amazon, those living in the hinterlands, how many Brazilian, Nigeria, Igbo community speaking today modern day Igbo, they have never been to Africa, their kids do not know anything about Africa, and they are Brazilians, and they are Nigerians. We have several and several of them. So if you come back to the African continent, clever thing that some presidents, including the former president of Ghana, Mr. Jokum Kufuor, President Kufuor, the late Muammar al-Gaddafi, Festus Mogae of Botswana, Thabo Mbeki, and then some of those leaders, cleverly, they decided that if you look at the departments called the regions of Africa, where we have the north of Africa as one region, we have the east as one, west as one, central and the south, being the fifth of 5 regions, they sat down and created that no, the biggest community uncounted or unaccounted for, which is part of Africa, is the African diaspora and descendants. So therefore, let us put them together and then call it the 6th region of Africa, which happens to be, they were put literally on a country, on a paper, called the 57th state of Africa, instead of 56 countries on the African continent. So if you look at it from that point, Africa indeed is counted on the African Union not as 56 countries, but rather 57. When this idea was enacted or designed or created, one would have expected that we take it up after these presidents were out of office. The other presidents that came, in my view, have done a great disservice to such kind of a brilliant knowledge put out there by these presidents I've mentioned, which of course Obasanjo played also a very key role. Because if we had done that, when we meet at the ACP, the African Caribbean Pacific Summit, they always talk about oneness, we talk about one identity, we talk about legacy, African tradition, etc. A whole lot of topics are discussed. But just after they leave, you find out that the real communique or whatever was discussed is not followed up suit. So it gives it very difficult for one believe that we are losing all our Pan-African presidents. That gives us the importance of some of you, and then indeed you, my dear sister Susan, that Africa, as you've initiated, opening a satellite television station, which will be more professional, called the Pan-African TV, where indeed stories, where indeed history, where indeed culture, where indeed tradition of the African will be discussed out there. So I'll take this opportunity to enlighten, to invite all of you listening, watching, should try to contribute on such a noble venture, which will give this television station a facelifting, whereas we have an Pan-African station, to give us the chance to be able to treat such a topic, which is very critical. With that, and by so doing so, we will not see ourselves and be running away because we do not understand our identity. Let us put colonizing, Afroism in a context of not as enemies. There is a colonialism, of course, we were colonized by certain powers. But there is a certain kind of Afroism, that is the African approach and the oneness of the African. But where do we meet the Afroism and colonialism? So the colonies, we, the Africans and the black man, have divided ourselves in line, in tune with our colonial or our colonies. But indeed, how far has that helped us? Politically, colonially toned. And then also economically, we are also following our colonies. So one sees that that's a French, that is an English. Is that something that should really be a bother or big deal between us? The answer is capital no. We don't need that. We should look into one thing, that what is the race, the identity of the race, what we actually have in society. I'll take this opportunity that let us look at the departments, and also let us look at the regions, let us look at the countries, let us look at also the Caribbean, the islands, and let us go into also the Pacific and understand that Africa is a continent that has given birth to a lot and almost all black men on earth, regardless of your geographical location. West Africa. West Africa, as we do know, has a community of about 17 countries. Ghana is part, Nigeria is part, Senegal, Mali, Burkina, Cote d'Ivoire, and all that. When you come to Central, we have your country, Dr. Susan, we have Cameroon, we have Gabon, Central African Republic, Congo Kinshasa, Congo Brazzaville, and then also, which one of them? Guinea Equatorial, and others also grouped in the Central. Part of Congo, part of Angola, one would say the North, the Babaminda or the Cabinda area. Some sees it as part of what? Central Africa. But when we come to the east, we see countries like Uganda, we see countries like Kenya, we see countries like Eritrea, Ethiopia, and then we go to Tanzania, we go to Burundi, we have Rwanda, and all these countries also grouped up out there in the east. Come down to the south, we have Mozambique, we have Swaziland, we have Lesotho, South Africa, we have Zimbabwe, we have Zambia out there, Botswana, all these countries, Namibia, are all scattered in the south. In the north, where we have the Morocco, where we have the Sahrawi republics, where we have the Algeria, Libya, and then we have the Egypt, and then far in the Djibouti, in the Eastern Horn out there, and then so if you look at all this beautiful countries lined up there, we are all Africa, 56 countries. So how can't we take advantage of this great region, this great continent, and that Europeans have made their own, they have managed to unite their own, regardless of their differences. Individually, you see the European countries, they are not like even us, where they have a cultural difference, a cultural, how do we call it, connectivity. For us, across, there is no food that is eaten in Ghana that is not in Nigeria, and vice versa. There is no culture or cultural dance that is in Togo that is not existing in Ghana. There is none that in Benin that is not in Nigeria. There is none that in Cameroon that you don't have the same dance in Gabon. There's none that you have in Yaoundé that you don't have the same thing in Brazzaville. Talk about our music. Talk about our way of dancing. Talk about our culture, how we carry our children, how we go to school, how we sing. Everything that we do, it is similarly the same everywhere. So if we sit back and we are still talking about a colonial master that came from a different color, that came from a different background, but then due to economic and also we call it at that time, the dark ages of mankind, they took care of you and called you their colony. And at a point for some couple of years and 100 years ago, they liberated all of you. So when we were out of bondage, that should have been the turning point of all the Africans looking out together and bring ourselves together. Too late, in my view, it is not. We can do that. We can put ourselves together. We can come back together. But then the political identity and ideology had also deepened in our disconnection. And out of that, some of you out there and some of them out there would say that it is about time, it is high time for us to ignore politics, colonies, language, official language, either being Arab, being Portuguese, Spanish or French, English. It is not what is important. The Europeans, if you compare theirs, Bulgarians speak Bulgarian, Romanian speaks their language, Ukrainians speak their language, Russian has their language, Germans has their own, Swiss has their own, the Netherlands. Every European country virtually, they have their different language. So we have language officially designed. But the interesting thing is when you come out with the traditional, the cultural, and the ancient typical African language, the typical language, do African. Go to Caribbean, you meet every Creole. You meet Creole in almost every part of the Caribbean. Go to the South Pacific, the countries which I'm going to treat. They have Creole all over. And Creole spoken in your country, in Cameroon, where I understand Cameroon Creole. Creole spoken also in Liberia. Creole spoken also in Sierra Leone. Creole spoken in Haiti. Creole spoken in other parts, including some part of even Jamaica. So therefore, how do we see ourselves disunited and cannot come and embrace and change the narrations or change the narratives that no, it is high time for us to bring ourselves and see ourselves that we are indeed one people. Our names, indeed, is so. A lot of names were forced to be changed. But then some places you see the people, you don't even need to ask which part of Africa or which part of the world they come from. Their facial looks, their physical looks, their physicals completely give them out where they come from. So I'm saying that let us not look, let's look outside the box. And looking outside the box means that we should look outside the politics. We should look outside our respective countries. The country is just a name, as I've given an example that in Europe, they have different country names. But when they sit down congregation of Europeans, they see themselves as one. Is that the case? They are assisting themselves. They help each other. They support the economies to grow. They support their schools to grow. They give educational background, support from one country to another. We were all here in the world when Greece was crashing into pieces economically. What did you see? Germany took care of about 60% of Greeks' debt because they wanted to protect and they didn't want disgrace. Are we doing that? No. I've said on your program several times that in the history of the 70 or 100 years of the African independence put all together, we are yet to see one single African country that has donated even $50,000 as a loan, a facility or grant to the fellow African country. Why are we like that? Interesting. But when any country or other continent is affected, African countries are quick to respond and go to their assistance. But we don't do that to ourselves in Africa. Susan, let me just take us to the Australia. The Australian continent, which is the Oceania continent, we have South Pacific. And the South Pacific is a combination of a lot of islands and archipelagos. There are a lot of islands in the South Pacific. Which ones are them? We have the group settings, the kind of people, the kind of call it a color. From the Micronesians, the Melanesians, the Polynesians. If you look at the history of the Melanesians, which is made up of Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, Samoa, and then New Caledonia, go and check out their names and check out the origin. A country like Papua New Guinea, the PNG, Papua New Guinea has a community of the Gans in Ghana here, who are Papua New Guineans. A community of Papua New Guinea in the South Pacific. They have not been to Ghana. They don't know anything about Ghana, but they have the Ga tribe of the city Accra, which is the capital of Ghana, in Papua New Guinea, PNG. So, isn't that interesting? They eat the same way. They eat the same way that we eat out here. Look at the Micronesians, the Melanesians. When you talk about the Micronesians, the Federated Republics of the Melanesia, which are the 4 of the islands, the Pohnpei, the Yaps, the Chooks, these islands, and the Kosara. The Kosara Islands, which are forming the Micronesia, they are all blacks from African origin. Let's go to the Polynesians. The Polynesians, if you look at the interesting story of the South Pacific, the South Pacific 14 islands, which one of them, Vanuatu is 1, Tonga is 2, we have the Palau, we have the Nauru Island, we have the New Caledonia, we have the Marshalls, we have the Wallis and Tunarus, we have also the Fiji, Papua New Guinea, we have the Solomon Islands. All these islands that you find them across, including the Federated Republic of Micronesia, making 14 islands, occupying, interestingly, 15% of the entire globe size. 15% of the globe. 15%. So if you look at the smallest country, we take aside the European so-called Bishop Rock from the English Isles, which was the smallest island. But if you're talking about the smallest island, the Nauru Island of the South Pacific, they're only 12,000. These countries, all of them migrated, originated from Africa. They do not know when and how. But if you date back their history, it is equal to the slave trade period of 400 years. That is why the Greeks said that if even you are a Micronesian or you're Polynesian or Melanesian, you are so from nowhere than the African. And that brings us to the topic of the West Papua, which you have been treating. And thanks for treating that topic, because 20th century, 2020, will still have an African descent. Europeans wouldn't allow that to happen. That an European country, European descendants, or the diaspora Europeans would have an occupation under a certain colony still under slavery in the hands of Indonesia. Africans have written, they've talked, they've written summit upon summit, meetings upon meetings. Nothing has been done to it. What is the entire continent of the African descent diaspora, Caribbean, Africa, Pacific? What have we done with it? Virtually nothing. Leaving our brothers and sisters still suffering. So as I said, you remember the topic when we brought about the black man's life matter. I said, yes, it is indeed very important. But let us also go and see how our blacks and African being already imprisoned by Indonesian army and then given a security that a python, a snake, that are guiding them. Isn't it sad that we have this existing and nobody seems not to be concerned, or we are not talking about it, we are not concerned about it? So pretty much, let's talk about the culture. Let's talk about the people. I'll single out a country which I'm very close to because of the Prime Minister and because of the former Foreign Minister, Ralph Raginvanu, Bob Loftman, who is today's Foreign Prime Minister, and then Ambassador Tevi, Ambassador Lich. All of them, I happen and have been a government delegation member of the people of Vanuatu. Look at Vanuatu. Vanuatu as a country, only the whole total population is 300,000. And is made up of 85 islands that forms the country with a wider distance between them. They have up to date the most active today, current active in the Tana region or the Tana province of Vanuatu, volcano. They have all manners of weather out there. There's cyclone, they have tsunami, they have earthquake, they have heavy rain, everything you can combine. And yet, tropical rainforest and good vegetation. They eat the same cassava that you eat in Bamenda. They eat the same cassava that we eat in Boya, the same cassava that you find in Guinea, the same cassava that you find in Cameroon, anywhere, the same cassava you see it in Congo, the same cassava you see it in Tanzania. Banana, yam, cocoyam, everything that we have, surprisingly, when you go to PNG, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, our food and their food is not different from ours. Our lifestyle is not different from others. We live in the same house. We sleep in one room. They eat from one bowl. They dance. Culturally, Vanuatu, for instance, has the most weird and most wild and the most interesting culture of all cultures of the whole entire world, with festivals that it doesn't exist anywhere. And they are typically Africans. What language? The Bismillah language that they speak out there. The Bismillah language that they speak out there. It is a combination. You will find Swahili, a mixture of Creole, a mixture of other dialects found on the West Africa or found anywhere in Africa is in Bismillah. So, why are we not, and why are we not so looking and searching for our brothers and sisters? And it must start, let's say, with the government to government level, bringing them together for us not to see them as outsider. But a total population of 2.3 million that are sitting on the earth bigger size of 15% of the entire globe is occupied by an African. 15% of the entire globe. That is the size of the northwest, the northeast of Australia, the western part and the south, all the way up to Hawaii, the western of New Zealand, and then also the eastern part, sandwiched in between this Australia, New Zealand, and then also giving headway to Hawaii in the United States. That bunch of that big ocean occupied by a black man, and the total population of all these countries I've already mentioned is only 2.5, 2.3 million, 2.5. They are brothers. They are brothers. The French Polynesia, it doesn't matter they are French. The Tahiti doesn't matter they are French. The Kiribati doesn't matter they are French. But the Commonwealth English that are there. When during the Second World War, Queen Elizabeth, at the time, that was Vanuatu was the country that the Queen was hiding. So how do we call it? The black man protected the Queen. When did they give them independence in the South Pacific? 75, 70, 74, from 70 era. They were still under occupation. Vanuatu got the independence in 1980, the same time with Zimbabwe and the same time with other countries in a part of Africa. So what we are saying is that we have the same language, we have the same culture, we have the same identity, we have the same food that we eat, the same tradition, and we have the kings and the queens. If you go to Vanuatu, the Ni Vanuatu, as they are called, the citizen or the native of Vanuatu, Ni Vanuatu, they sit down in a traditional home like Douala, they sit down in a traditional home like Igbo land, they sit down in a traditional home where king and queens are installed and distilled in the same line that we do our own. The same festival, the same way that I don't know what is actually different apart from their geographical location and apart from maybe how they dress. We Africans, we call ourselves, we are over modernized, but go there, the tradition, the real culture, the authentic African culture is still prevailing out there, to the extent that we have women, African women in that part of the world who still do not know the Afro hair and then the Brazilian. They don't need that. But here yes, of course, now we are all, we don't like, we claim that we don't like the whites, but we buy the whites and the hair, and that is all we hang on our hair, and our women will be tossing it left, right, center. But back then in the South Pacific, Miss Susan, you understand? They haven't seen nails, acrylic nails. They haven't seen it yet. They have not. There are islands that have not seen airplane before, and the Africans, part of the Micronesia lands, part of the Polynesia lands, and part of the Melanesia Islands. They haven't seen aircraft before. They don't have even what is called airport. Some have not seen a car called Range Rover, called Benz, etc. This is the way African actually had lived. So what can we do to bridge up the political aspect of it, which is the ACP, has helped, but it has helped only on the political front. But when it comes to you and I, bringing the African together, bringing the Caribbean together, bringing the South Pacific together, it is where that we lack the potency, and that is where we lack the connectivity and the push for us to make sure, or for us to say that we are all one people, we are the same. So let's go to the aid of our brothers and sisters. Look, the kind of wealth the South Pacific nations are sitting on it, it is more than the total wealth of the entire Africa. And yet, they are poor. And yet, they are left. Because education, if you look at the whole 14 islands that I've mentioned, they have one university, what is the University of South Pacific, the USP. The Pacific forums that they formed, the Melanesia Forum that they formed, the Polynesia Forum that they formed and brought all together, they have just one university. Compared to ours, where Nigeria has more than close to 100 universities, Ghana has more than 80, Cameroon has how many universities across board? What kind of a bridge are we building to support our brothers and sisters? At least to open them up. Take advantage also of their resources for them also to benefit with our technology. Instead of still now allowing countries like Vanuatu, the Chinese have hit that back. Seriously. Because the people are still like orphans. The white man, the colonial masters, if you look at how the islands were divided, the French took half and the English took half. Some countries, when the wealth is big, they decided to share. Like Vanuatu, the French takes the north, English takes the south, the Commonwealth. All over, that is what has happened on the continent of the Oceania and the South Pacific. So I'm saying that we can also support. We can also come on board. Let us invite them. Let us bring them. Let us go out there. Our holiday should not be only Dubai. The best countries, the best places, the green oceans, the tough ocean, cleanest ocean, beautiful oceans on the earth is found in the South Pacific and then Caribbean. Because in Africa, we are over-sensible, over-smart. We have damaged all our ocean belts with filth. But over there, thank God, it's one of the best things that you can get is the authentic nature and the natural habitations. So if you want a place to have your holiday, if you have a place to have your vacations, they have opened their arms, giving every African country virtually a visa free. From Solomon Islands to the United States is how many kilometers away? And they embrace Africans, but we are not going. Where do we need? Dubai. Where do we need? Guangzhou. But we can also do trade among ourselves, as the Europeans have done, as the Turkish are doing, as the Russians did, as the Japanese have done, and other cultures of the world, another continent, and other citizens from different parts of the world, excluding we, the Africans, because if you invite an African to come to South Pacific, they'll tell you that, oh, what is there? You want to see a high scriptures, and you have to take the little money that you have, beautiful money, go and spend in Dubai hotels, which is already an artificial hotel. But go to that vegetation and see how your brother lives. Let them have a feel of you. As you go to some part of Jamaica and they realize that you're African, they chase you and follow you the whole day because they've seen more or less their God. But when it comes to the front, especially we those, and you those who are living in Europe, you are terrible. Africans living in Europe are terrible.
Yes.
There is no love.
It's true.
When even they see an African restaurant, they would rather go to an Asian or they will go to a Latino restaurant because they don't see the importance and the knowledge to patronize their brother or their sister's restaurant. But timelessly, when a Chinese has a restaurant, every Chinese within the district will make sure they will go there and eat. And that is what the message I'm bringing this evening. That we have beautiful continent, beautiful diaspora community, beautiful part of the world that is occupied till today being occupied by the African. So what we can do is to start the journey by visiting those islands, visiting our brothers. Let us limit all our visitations and all our tourists to Europe. Europe, the same thing that you see. They don't have any land anywhere to build new things. They can only do redesigning, putting a head of the building, they put the head and turn it down. In the next 10 years, they put the down and turn it up. That's all what you see. But timelessly, you will find out that Caribbean, it is so much you can never finish watching. You can never finish. Even in Africa. Go to East Africa, the Tanganyika Basin in Tanzania, in Kenya, other parts. Africans are not even patronizing African destinations. But Europeans are patronizing our destinations. And when they come and take what they want away, we are saying that what? They are stealing us. That is where they come for their leisure, because it is cheap. But you pack your $10,000, which European will take 2,000 out of it, come and spend in the Caribbean, come and spend it in the South Pacific, and have a good life, good taste of food, good weather, and enjoy the ambience, and enjoy also the leisure of the African people in the South Pacific. How many of us? Susie, I think your television is long overdue, but I understand the cost and the financial aspect of it. That please, public, let us all be contributing quickly, and then we can start advertising and pushing African products, pushing African destinations, pushing things for Africa, for us to see ourselves. Not only that it's about an earthquake, only when it's about famine, only when it's about war, only when it's about genocide. But let us be proud of what the Almighty Allah has given to all the African. Wherever an African lives, that is where the resources and that is where the wealth of the world is. But we don't see eye to eye. When you ask them, it says political differences. It is not, it's stupidity. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with politics. Nobody plays politics more than the European. Nobody plays politics more than the Americans. Nobody plays politics more than the Russians. But when it comes to baseline of developing and trading and making sure their people are well resourced, their people are well positioned and well treated, well educated, we do the opposite. It's about time, Dr. Susan, that Africa, for us to understand that it is not the only African continent of the 56 countries that you are seeing. The Africa that you haven't seen, it is bigger than the African that you're occupying. And for your history you take home today is that the South Pacific of about 14 islands, they are occupying a land of 15% of the entire globe, which is huge. Only your brothers and sisters are out there. How best are we prepared to go and take advantage of the economic prosperity that is existing? People in Vanuatu have not seen a dressing heel of a woman, whereas Dr. Susan, your heel is about 2 meters. They haven't worn it before yet. No nails. So get the African hairdressing salon. They are still braiding their hair. Go out there and learn the modernity, what they also know, and the complexity and the beauty of their hair braids. Not the usual one that we've seen. We are tired. We don't want to see that. We want to see new things. African men, we don't want to see that. Well, it hasn't gotten there yet, where they have to go and hip their boobs and hips, their ass, and whatever. No, they haven't gotten there yet. They are still living in the nature, their natural habitation, very authentic. They are brothers and sisters. They have our names. They have our native languages. They have our native food. They are Africans. We are Africans. And it doesn't end up only the 4 corners of the continent Africa, but across the Micronesia, Polynesia, and then also the Melanesia continent of the Oceania states. which is on the Australian continent, and then the Caribbean not left behind. All of us must come together. So assuming that we have that connection, not a political connection, but we have that kind of natural and then connectivity, saying that the diaspora, and indeed, for your information, you quickly have to interview Ambassador Dr. Bennett, which you have to, I'll power that arrangement for you to have her interviewed. That she is the president and the ambassador of the African's 57 state, the Diaspora Forum, which is called the AU-DAF. I took AU-DAF to Romania, and then I do sometimes also consult on the AU-DAF platform. The embassy is located in Accra, where diasporans can access the embassy. Even for us to resource that embassy, there was a push for the diasporan passport. There is a push, and indeed there is a diaspora that you can be issued. If you're in West Africa, you can be issued ECOWAS passport as a diasporan. Are you aware of that? People don't access that office. You can do your business and establish it through, ask for the assistance of the diaspora, because that is also your country if you do not know where you come from. Go to the diaspora platform, and you have a country called the 57th state of Africa, the 6th region of Africa. It is right down here in Accra, near the Du Bois Center, and a full diplomatic mission, mind-controlled, and then also by Dr. Bennett, Ambassador Erica Bennett. I think you've interviewed Dr. Arikana several times. She says she's part of the board members of the AU-DAF. You can find out from her. She'll tell you. So let us make use, take advantage of all this. Let us bring our continent. Let us bring our people. Let us bring our politics. Let us bring our economy. Let us bring our children. Let us do our marriages, cross-tribal, let's call it continental marriages among ourselves. We will see a new thing. You understand? Nowhere we have that strong demarcation where we saw that Amazonian cannot marry from Literal province because of X, Y, Z. It is because how we've allowed ourselves. And then due to that, we are severing our own brothers and sisters within our own country. Typical cases, the Amazonian story and the difficulty they are going through. How on earth? So if I say that we are not protecting our race, some people find it difficult. If we protect our race, is it needful for the central government of Cameroon to be killing people at daylight? And the entire Africa is sitting down quiet looking because they call it, they tell you it's a political issue. Is it possible like that? Europeans will not sit down where people are daylight being massacred. When Yugoslavia started, Europeans decided and supported the minority tribes to have their country until they all divided the countries, Croatia, Serbia, and all that, Slovenia. It is because they couldn't afford, they wouldn't sit to see what was ongoing. So whatever support diplomatically, politically, financially, they supported them too. Why are we quiet when our brothers and sisters, genocide is being what? Unleashed on other parts of the African, within our own countries. I think it is a fine story. It is a fine topic. We should not stop treating this. We should not stop discussing Africa, discussing diaspora. And those of you who did not know, please, Africa and Africans are not only those living in Africa, but then includes those living far even in the Greenland. If you find them being blacks, they are from nowhere than the same race. So we are one people. Diaspora is not only the United States, African, American, but diaspora is also the people of the South and then also the Caribbean. And then even within Africa, we have diasporans within our own continent, Africa. Let me thank you for the presentation.
Oh, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. International diplomatic consultant Farouk Al Wahab, the Great. The Great. We call him the moving encyclopedia, dictionary, wiki, everything, Africa wiki. We're so happy. We're so happy. Why? Because sharing this kind of knowledge that we've been marginalized from, like you said, from our educational system. Slavery to us has a name on the continent. Slavery to us is Black American. And that's why we're so limited. And yes, we're so limited. Why? Because exactly what you're saying. We're not open to see the opportunities that an African child is blessed with. To know that I can leave the continent and I go to Vanuatu, I have my brothers there, I have a relative there, I'm welcome. To leave the African continent, I go to West Papua, I have my brothers there, everywhere in the world. What is it that is limited to an African child if you know your potentials, if you know your history? Now, when we start talking about history, we talk more. Yesterday, we treated topics about our ancient Africa. Yes, we saw the pyramids, we saw everything that our ancestors discovered that made us great. And one thing I remember Professor Baina said was, when they discovered that and they brought it to the level of the pyramid, they knew they built a legacy and had a descendants that would push it forward. We've not even reached there, talk less of even taking it further. We have run away from it and has been put into other people's shoes, like you were saying. Europe is the poorest, Germany in particular, in terms of resources, raw materials, minerals, like we're saying. Like you said, they keep refurbishing. And that's why you hear renewable. Everything is just renewed. Even from water, people pee in water, they renew it and they drink it again. Now, we still have fresh fountains untapped everywhere. And look at where we're running and putting our energy into, where we have all the islands with all its beauty and nature and cheap and visa free. Come on, give me a break. I mean, it's unbelievable how rich we are. Now, when we're talking about the mindset, African people today at the Pan African University, like my sister Sylvia Baker is saying, we have to learn the poverty of the mind. How can we be so rich? And sometimes when we're talking about the riches, Pharaoh, they're only talking about, oh, you know, African as a continent, continental Africa. We're only talking about, oh, look at the minerals and stuff. But we are even not looking at the human resources, the people, our people. And remember what Professor Dr. Kaba said yesterday. And I will treat that topic with you. We are people to people. So our riches is not people to material like the European or the Eurocentric. We are people to people. Our riches are packaged in people. Our riches are packaged in nature. Two things: people, nature. We all come from nature. That was what we learned yesterday. This is exactly what Farouk is brushing from the continental professoral point of view. Now we're not going into discoveries, into scientific research, into African ancient history that we treated yesterday. Now we're talking about the day-to-day history, because then we relate to it. We relate to it. Now we see them alive today. Like I said, who do we look at Beyonce or Rihanna to be? Who do we look at Professor Bayina to be? Who do we look at Dr. Kaba to be? It's your relatives. And so we don't even want to say African people. That's why we put the topic, knowing your relatives out of Africa, your relatives, because we're a family. Because sometimes I think when we start even saying African diaspora, those are the terms that they still package and give to us. Now we have to be talking, where is my family out of Africa? Yeah. Where did they take them to? And now you see us multiply everywhere. I go to Turks, I see my Black brothers there. I go to Malaysian, I go to Indonesia. Come on, how limited are we African people that we see just the poverty in the minds that they package and give to us, and we begin to run and come to dry lands, dry lands, lands where they have nothing but fake, from food, from everything, from water. Nothing. Everything you see green, the green is even different. How come? Where our eyes and our minds and our ears in everything that we feel, transform the nature into artificial until we adopt. And now, Prof, you said something very important, that we don't take advantage of our own nature, and Europeans are taking advantage of it, and then we complain because they understand the need and the use of nature. Now they've lived, they package the artificial, they sell to us, and then they take our nature and then they give us the artificiality. And then we stay in it, we embrace it, we admire it, we adore it. Look at it, starting from our marriages, starting from our homes. Look at our homes. What kind of flowers do we buy? Fake. Fake. You go to a decorations, a party, fake flowers, fake sugar that is decorated. We just want to say bling, bling. And then we are like, wow, we're civilized people. No, it's wrong. Fake. It's all lies. Now, because the reality is the nature. And so I also had to go through that. I also were looking only at plants that were just beautifully colored. But then when I started researching and I look at all these things, I had it in my small village in Gwokwang, Achatugi, where I come from. If you look at it, you won't find it on the map. And I saw the flowers that they just combine and put it in the flower shops, and it looks beautiful. Just a combination of nature put together. And you have all of them, purple, green, red, yellow, green, all. Now they begin to even spray some and make it look more. How do we come to choose plastic over nature? How? What kind of act did they injected in us? Come on, it's so damn rich. Go ahead.
If even I may help you with that. Take a typical case scenario of a country called Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. And what country sells flowers in the world? The Netherlands. Netherlands flowers forms about, I think, the second or the third national income. On KLM goes to Kenya. They have their farms in Kenya, bring the flower, package and export to the entire world, Kenyan flowers. But they don't name it Kenyan flowers. They name it flowers of Holland. I get it. Now, when you go to a party in Kenya, the flower there, like you say, plastic flowers imported from China, that goes into the decoration for a higher cost. Higher cost. Kenya. Holland is using the flowers, authentic, original, natural flowers of Kenya to build her economy. And Kenyans have gone to China to buy plastic flowers designed, and they used to decorate parties and pay huge money. In Nigeria, typical case scenario, bouquet that people give to their girlfriends and their wives as birthday present, they import it from the Netherlands, delivered with DHL overnight, and pay in thousands of dollars, $20,000 bouquet. That is a mark of a big boy celebrated and celebrating the girlfriend or the wife's birthday party. However, take him to Ekiti village. That flower, those ones you find them behind the school gardens. Beautiful and in water can sustain and withstand for more than. They rather we import the Kenya, the Holland, the Netherlands flowers, which after the event, they throw it away. So if you have $20,000 to buy a bouquet of flowers because you are extra civilized, to give us a present, to showcase your wealth, to showcase your magnitude and how strong you are economically, that $20,000 can go back to the yard, to the farms, and have that flower farm and even export it. We are not prepared to do that. We are not, like I said. Look at the Tanzania, look at Botswana and some other part of the East African and the South African countries. And look at their tourist destinations and check who are the owners. And check who are the people guiding the animals, security of the animals, and the ownership of the ranch or the ownership of the tourist site where our own animals are kept. The animals belongs to the white man from a black man's bush, and the security personnel guiding the animal for a white or for whoever to go and watch is a black man, an African. It has not come into the thinking that we own it. It has not come into our thinking that let them watch it, let them come and visit, let them come and look, and the resources, the money comes to it. No. They come and pay. The owner is a white man, or the owner is from Europe or elsewhere, and after that, carry it and take it away. But rather we want to go to Dubai and sit on camel, and donkeys.
And take pictures.
And take pictures at an artificial beach, desert beach. You tell you that you want to see a desert, just to have a desert ride. Is there any desert more than the one in Agadas? Is there any desert more than Niger? Is there any desert more than Asamaka? Is there any desert more than Arlet? Is there any desert more than Gao? Is there any desert more than Burkina? Is there any desert more than Chad? We don't want the Chad desert. We don't want the Sudanese desert. Even the beautiful desert in Botswana, which is landlocked nation, we don't want it. We want the desert in Dubai, because that desert is God promised land. So we go and spend money and come and make somebody's resources, somebody's country, economic powerful, and then you come back to your country, and then you saw them in total, as the Germans would say, the total armut, in poverty. So for me, it is a topic of, I think we are the cause, as we've always mentioned, of our own problems. We are the enemies to ourselves. We have disintegrated ourselves. We are not yet prepared. But then the tool of the internet, the Google Drive, and the technology, the IT, and the chance now that we can sit in Yaoundé or sit in Accra and connect around the globe, it should be easier for us to do such facilitations, solicitations, consultations, and bring ourselves together. We should be having a united front and a building of forums, business trade forums. How often do we reach out to ourselves to do this? No. Businesses that are in the South Pacific, you have no idea. Huge business opportunities. Huge business opportunities, because our sisters and brothers are living there. They don't know. They don't know. We are far advanced. Are we prepared to extend our intelligence, our business knowledge, and then also our wealth to go there and tap also the resources, open up their market whilst we help them? We are still living in an enclosed circuit, doing the same business in Ghana, the same business in Nigeria, the same thing. All of us across board are only engaged in trading. Only trading.
The same thing.
The same thing. One principal street of Accra, they sell, as we call it, Nestle related or Nestle products, provisions. You find out more than 2,000 shops, one container after their container, selling on milk, Coca-Cola, Fanta, products that does not belong to us. But the cover plant in countries like Vanuatu, Americans come to Vanuatu, Australians go to Vanuatu, take the cover plant and go out there and sell a kilo of power, a cover plant for $40, expensive than any alcoholic beverage, any alcoholic plant, and it's out there virtually free of charge. And then we are buying related alcoholic beverages from other parts of the world, while the plant cover is in Vanuatu, it's in Tonga Island, it's in Kiribati, it's in Mauritius, it's in New Caledonia, it's all over Niue Island. They have them just like that. Everything is there. So, doctor, I think over this topic will not end. We can use 5 hours before exhausting it, but I'm saying that too late is not. Let us power the ears of our brothers and sisters, basically also to propel and support your television program, the African television program, the Pan-African television program, to have our own TV, so you can invite, regardless of whoever, anybody that has something to share. Let us start the talking. And I think the spirit of Pan-Africanism is what went into the thinking of the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Lumumbas, etc. They did their best at the time because they faced a very huge challenges. Yes, of course, they did some mistakes, but it couldn't have been any other way around to have done such mistakes. It is our time to continue from there. And what are we? We are rather going down deep, falling, reversing the gear, reversing the entry. In terms of our food, we've changed. Our dress code have changed. They will tell you that fashion. They'll tell you fashion. But white man comes to Africa, they like your African print, the African jumper. They wear it morning, evening, afternoon. Even when you give it to them as underwear, they want to wear it. But you do not want that one. Yes, of course, we cannot reverse the entry where we've reached, but at least we can do something about it. Let us embrace ourselves, do business among ourselves, resource ourselves, reinforce, and then support our economies. We do not need to sit down and wait for political will and political decisions. It will not come so easy because the people leading us politically, that is not what they are looking for. We do not need to steal, as I've always mentioned, that yes, go ahead to steal the money if you feel you cannot stop. But when you steal the money, invest and leave the money on that country, on the soil. People will get work to do. Surprisingly, how many African presidents across all our rich nations, richer ones? Every African country is not poor. There is no poor African country because the minerals that gives the countries money, you have them. But how many of them have, even in 1 acre of a land? You can single-handed people point people like Obasanjo and few others. The rest, they just only go back and then they fall on their ex gratia pension money and sit down, leaving the billions of dollars sitting in their account, making a certain country their bank to get interest and interest and interest and interest, giving their people access to go and borrow at a cheaper borrowing rate of an interest. Look at what's happening in America. After COVID, the loans, facilities that they are giving to people, they haven't single-handed that, they haven't said that Africans are not beneficiaries. Africans living in the United States, some are getting as much as $60,000 to be paid in 30 years. In our own country, not even one dime of dollar will be given to you if your grandfather's obituary notice is not brought, who died 60 years ago, as a proof. They know you will not get it. What's all that? What is all that? So the mindset has to be changed. The heart has to be changed. We claim to be very intelligent, but when it comes to matters of legacy, we apply wisdom, common sense, not intelligence, which is just simply acquired. But then if we apply wisdom, we will know some of these things that, yes, you'll be clever, you'll be intelligent to steal money to go and deposit outside there. But the wisdom should tell you that you may one day leave the money there and somebody may benefit out of that. without your country being the final beneficiary and your own people. So let's keep the fire burning and let's keep educating ourselves. Let's keep preaching to ourselves and let's learn more about our continent and where we come from. Bear in mind that we are one people, one destiny, one. Your microphone is off.
Yes, I'm opening up the lines. I'm opening up the lines. Now you can call, make a contribution. Remember, all of us are here as a family. We have the guest speakers, we have the commentators, we have the callers, we have the contributors. So all of us contribute to build this knowledge. I want to thank our guests for today very much for these historical facts and education. And remember, we are learning to build ourselves because we've realized one thing that is very simple. We are so rich, but we think poor. We are rich, but we're thinking that we are poor. And that's why even the small riches that we have, the natural things that we can use, we still prefer to pay and buy artificial things that cost us money. So thereby giving money all the time. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Good evening.
Good evening, Mama Tata.
Good evening,
And
my
also
daughter.
Good evening, good evening, Wahab.
Right? Yes,
Good evening.
yes.
I also wanted to ask a question because I also grew up like watching Bollywood. So when I grew up, I thought Indians were actually white. But I then find out that India is a black country, but only a few minority look like Bollywood. So my question is, even China, we have really the indigenous people are black Chinese. Even in New Zealand, the Maoris, this is a black country. So my question is, how can we use media to let our children to see the reality of the world we are living in? So this was my question.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do you want to answer or you want me to pick the questions? Because
No, I can answer and then whilst others prepare. Well,
okay.
Thank you very much. Also, it's good that some of you, a person like you, you are very much abreast and aware of some of the things that I'm talking about. Indeed, how to use the media, it is very simple. The media is what the social media platform is where we are now. It means that let us see how that Pan-African TV, for instance, would have a crossover program to that of the South Pacific, to that of the Caribbean, where we have a measure of the programs, where we have education, where we have a teaching, where we'll be able to speak and treat topics of our legacies, topics of our lineage, topics of where we came from. So the powerful tool to do this is no other tool than the media. And the media is what we are using now. We are using the media to reach out the world. Before, it wasn't like that. It has become possible and very easier for us to be looking at ourselves called a video call, the Zoom, the virtual, as we're doing. So it makes it quite easier to reach out the world because as we are speaking now, talking about Vanuatu away, there are the people out there, if they tune to Facebook Live, they know what is happening. So the media is within our reach and it makes it quite easier. But then the point is, where is the willpower, the happiness that we invest in, the time that we invest in, the knowledge that we invest in, and then the interest that we are prepared to invest for us to teach each other, for us to reach out to each other. Not only particularly that we feel that when we go on the internet to do business, we only want to look at do business with European firms or American firms or Canadian firms or New Zealand firms or Japanese firms. But let us look at what business that we can do with some of these countries, Barbados, Miss Doctor, could you believe that the African print, the wax, the African jalabia, as we call it, or the kaftans that we sell in Africa now, it's of no price. It has nothing, no value. Go out there. Our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, as you call them, in the South Pacific, a kaftan, they are prepared even to buy $200 with their small little money. They just want to have a feel of something from Africa on the body.
Yes.
We don't take advantage of that. We don't need that. We want to still go and then buy.
The topic.
It is. So, our beautiful lady with that question, the media is within our reach. People like Dr. Susan, those who have the media platforms, it is their duty now to go and do their research. It is your duty, Dr. Susan. Find out. I also link you some, as I've always done, to let you reach out to some. Go to Solomon Islands on their website, on the country's official website. Find out the radio stations. Find out the local radio stations in Vanuatu. Find out the local radio stations in Nauru. Find out the local radio stations in Niue Island. Find out the radio stations in Wallis and Futuna. All these islands are having a local station, and they'll be very happy to have their program also cross out there. It is out of that which we do not do and use the media. That is why the West Papua genocide unleashed on them by Indonesia is still not out there in the public light or the public domain. It's because we are not applying the media. We are using the Instagram and the Facebook to look at what dresses, to look at what new designs, not created by us, they're created by the people we claim that they are so they are using supremacy to rule us. We are supremacy ourselves, not them. So the media, my dear sister, is a good point. So Dr. Susan, I think you will take it up to connect and look out for media platforms of the Caribbean and then also South Pacific. You can do that through the South Pacific University of the South Pacific, USP. Get out there on their platform and look out for how to connect with the powerful media houses, and let us all build a platform together to teach ourselves. Let me thank our sister for that kind of awareness and also introducing the topic of the media, how we can use. This is the way we can use with the media to connect ourselves.
Anyway, I'm picking the next call, but for your information, she's the assistant on the Pan-African Daily TV, and that's why she just wanted that information for more. Yes.
Okay. So you have your answer already.
Clever, Nyasha. All right, I'm taking the next call. Hello.
Hello, Susie.
Yes. Good evening. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is I'm very much happy with Farouk. Hey, Farouk, I say, what's it?
Bashoyo.
Yeah. Anyway, what happened is that I'm very much happy, as I said, with what our brother Farouk said. But then we also want to see how, because I have to do my own research, which is obvious, but which I also want to know that you, being the man that travel a lot, you may be able to tell us on this platform how or what is the distance between Africa and these
islands.
Oceans, island. So that is it easy to travel?
Yes.
As they want the Africans to be punctual there. If our people can easily go and come, not that go and come the same day, but try to say the traveling will be easier.
Okay.
And also, as you mentioned, our sister Susie's pride of wanting to have a satellite. I know that it was Koforidua, University of Koforidua, who were able to put together the satellite, the Ghana one. So can you help? As you are in Accra now, so that the Ghana one, the university can be able to also help in our sisters' pride, so that all of us as the global family can benefit from it. Please, thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Okay, thanks already. Let me answer your first question. Whichever part of Africa that you are, to travel to the Caribbean, I think we all know we don't have non-stop flights. The easy access at that time before, I'm taking you to Caribbean before the South Pacific. If you are any part of Africa, the very easy access to go to Caribbean was to fly via Johannesburg, and then you cross over to Sao Paulo of Brazil. And when you're in Sao Paulo of Brazil, it makes it easier to start your journey. You transit from Sao Paulo to Caracas, Venezuela, Haiti, Dominican, then you keep descending all the way down to the Jamaican Ocean, down there to Cuba. Well, that is the way to go to Caribbean. You can also go through Europe, for instance, over London, over Amsterdam. If you are flying over Amsterdam, you can fly from Amsterdam to Martinique, Holland. You can fly from Amsterdam or from Paris to Martinique, Française, Guadeloupe. The European flights, British Airways, Air France, KLM, will give you access to any part of the Caribbean destinations. Then you go with the Varic Air, which run through the islands. That is the Caribbean side of it. Now, the ocean or the South Pacific, let me just give you a tip. Granting that you are in Accra and you want to go to any part of the South Pacific, Emirates is a good starter. It gives you 8.5 hours from Accra, that you're in Dubai. You fly from Dubai. If you want to take Singapore, you fly to Singapore, 7.5 hours from Dubai. And then from Singapore, the major airline that links you to the South Pacific is Fiji Air. Fiji Airlines goes through destinations. You can cross the Fiji Airlines to California or Hawaii if you are coming from the American continent on the back and hit Australia and enter the Pacific. But if you are from Africa, for the purpose of visa transiting, you need to go through Dubai transit-free, Singapore transit-free, and Fiji as an African descent, or call it a South Pacific nation, gives almost every African passport, including that of Ghana, Nigeria, and other places, visa-free. So when you get to Fiji, it is in Fiji where you get access to PNG, Papua New Guinea, to Vanuatu, to Kiribati, to Mauritius. But if you also have, let's say you are flying from Europe and you have European passport, you can go through Australia. You fly wherever to Adelaide, or you fly wherever to Perth, which is only about 3 hours. Any of the destinations in Australia to the South Pacific will give you 3 hours. The countries are scattered all over. So if you're in Vanuatu and you want to go to, let's say, Samoa, if you want to go to Solomon Island, if you want to go to Nauru Island, there are also pockets of smaller aircraft, Air Vanuatu, Fiji Air, Papua New Guinea, and the New Caledonia, Tahiti Air. All those local airlines, you get them across. And like I said, it is only the French side of the South Pacific where they still make sure, because as it says, French always French, they don't want others to come in there except them so that they can have control, because people in New Caledonia, they don't have independence. Tahiti hasn't got independence. So they are there and still using, it is seen as Paris Metropole, like a district of Paris, just like how Martinique Française used to be. There is a district of Paris added to Paris. So therefore, if you are going there, they are still using euro in the South Pacific. They are still using French passport in the South Pacific, European passport in the South Pacific. So they give you hard access to enter. But the Commonwealth South Pacific nations, as I've mentioned, all of them gives you visa free. So if you are from Ghana and you are going to the South Pacific, kindly use through Dubai, Singapore, Fiji, and anywhere you want. You make your research before going in the country that you want. Assuming you are from Nigeria, you can fly on Air Etihad. Air Etihad will take you to Qatar, and then from Qatar, either to Singapore or to Qatar, either to Hong Kong. So you can also go through Hong Kong and then enter Fiji from Hong Kong, which is very close. So there are connections. You can fly all the way on Dubai, that is over Dubai on Emirates, up to Hong Kong. Then you change. You pick Fiji Air from Hong Kong, direct to Fiji. It gives you 2 hours, 1 hour, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 15 minutes to all the Caribbean islands. Of course, there are some places like Nauru Island, their airport, they don't have an airport, they don't have this landing fields. The aircraft that you go, there's a Bandarati jet, it lands in the rocks and you feel the shake. Very interesting. Very interesting to go to that side. But then beautifully, it's very nice. Weather is very good. The hourly distance between us is 12 hours if you are flying from Ghana. So this is where and how you can travel to the Caribbean, to the South Pacific. Most of the countries except the French Polynesia, you don't need visas to any of them. And then you can go there. It's a beautiful place to have holidays. First go there and explore the land, have a vacation, and then have a feel of the people. Those who are not married, it will be another good destination to have your brothers and sisters have another children from the Caribbean, from the Pacific, and bring them back to Africa.
Right. Okay. Next question. No, you haven't answered the second one about giving.
Well, the second one was in respect of the satellite. I think he threw a challenge that the satellite was built in the Koforidua, and then I believe that the assistance or the technological support or the technological know-how, Susie, if we are to build the satellite TV, he has given you how. So maybe we have to start working on it and then also trying to explore the avenues and find out if something could be done. And then your television will become a reality and will be on satellite stream, which will help indeed all of us than only Facebook. Because not everybody has a Facebook access. Some people really want to see a satellite TV where one can in Kosovo tune up and have this program live and watch it. So I think it's still a support. Let us all see how best maybe we'll find out. Africans, we have a lot of technological people, a lot of scientists and the great technicians. All of you, not only physical or financial support, but material and then intelligence, the IPs, intellectual properties that we have to make this station work. I think we should all contribute and help for us to have a satellite TV. So it becomes a reality story that we can say that Pan-African TV is not for Susan, but it's for all of us. And that we can treat such a topic and we find our brothers in the other parts of the diaspora all contributing our life on this program.
Exactly. All right. I'm picking the next call from Papa Kofi. He's been waiting. Hello.
Hello, my dear sister.
Yes, because your brother is online. I brought a guest speaker yesterday for your topic of language. Where were you yesterday, Papa Kofi? Everybody was asking.
I was with you, but that moment I had to drop down. So this kind kids where most of the time they used to be so I had to drop down with him.
Okay.
That's why I couldn't ask my question. Really, yesterday I wanted to really ask the question, but I couldn't. The time didn't give me a chance.
Okay, now you're here.
So now I'm here to ask Mr. Farouk my question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mr. Farouk.
Yes.
You know, my question controversy. As far as controversial, no? Controversial issue. I want for you to understand so that you will not get me wrong point. Because I can't understand that issue. That is why I want to ask you this question. Because most of the time I used to watch your programs in Kofi TV. And you are one of my favorites. So this particular issue I need to understand. That is why I want to ask you. Mr. Farouk. Most of the time in Kofi TV, you said that Kwame Nkrumah regime is an corrupt regime and all those stuffs.
No.
When I used to, because you came this program several times, and I asked you about Jerry, you know. So immediately I asked you for Jerry. Anytime you tell Jerry as how it's like more or less, I would say that it's like your friend. you in Kofi TV, you didn't defend Nkrumah like as the man did, because the man spent, let's say, 9 years or 10 years in power, and see how all those things were the man achieved in Ghana. Jerry spent 19 good years in Ghana, and he didn't do nothing. All our things, the things which Nkrumah did, all can be, scattered. Seaman work can't scatter. The railways work can't scatter. Our roads all can't scatter. Scatter. So I can't understand why you always defend Jerry in this way. Okay, this is my first question. And the second question is, why our Ghanaian presidents are not financing this particular man, how they call Kojosafo Kantanka, because the man doing richest thing in Ghana. For instance, for agriculture side, and if you come to the technology side, and the man is there too. So why I can't understand why the president are not financing the man. And the third question is the third question is, which benefits are we get from the West education? This is the third question. Which benefit we get from the West education? And the last question is, why we African are not construct our own African central bank as the way the rest of the world get. American get, European get, Chinese get them own. We Africans must have our own bank so that the bank will feed us. We cannot depend upon European bank and all those stuff. So why we African are not building our own African banks? Please, Mr. Farouk, I wanted for you to understand me and try to explain this. The first question which I asked for me to understand.
Okay.
No, wait. No, I'm sorry. I have to intervene. The two first question has nothing to do with this program. We have to stay in context when we're studying a topic. But I've noted down these questions, and we're going to bring it under political discussions and knowledge. I can permit that you would respond to the third question, which I think it's okay. What is the importance of European education to us? Because we're talking about mindset and knowing ourselves and connecting our brothers out there. Probably because of that kind of education, we're distracted. But political issues are not today. Today, we are connecting to know knowledge about our brothers. So I'm sorry, Pakofi, that two questions would not be responded on this day. But of course, Al Farouk is also in charge of our political discussions and lectures, and we even talked about the free trade continental area that he still has to trade with. Also, maybe particularly when we take the case study of Ghana and other aspects of it, then we could get to that. Apart from that, I can also give you the possibility to get on a one-on-one with him, and he shares that, because it's a particular a personal questions that has actually nothing to do with us. This is one thing about learning and studying. We have to stay in context so that we get the point, so that we treat the point and end. Now, if the moment we distracted with something else, we throw away all the healthy things that we've been learning today. I hope you all agree with me, and that's just the way it has to go. So third question, that's okay. Go over to it.
Susie, thanks a lot for, but Mr. Kofi, even though I've been directed by the presenter and also moderator of the program to scale over or to skip the question, but very quick one. Apostle Kojo Safo's question, for your information, 2015, 2016, if you have a rich closeness or any link to Apostle Kojo Safo, I personally took Apostle Kojo Safo's creations, inventions, what he's doing, I took it upon myself, with his instructions and with his permission. I traveled to Germany, Stuttgart, to have a big meeting with Mercedes-Benz. It didn't end up there. I went on Apostle Kojo Safo's mission to bring Renault, and then not Renault only, Fiat. I was in Torino for 5 weeks to discuss Apostle Kojo Safo's inventions with Torino. We did a lot with the Fiat, but then the rest will be a long story. So Apostle Kojo Safo, if even you mention me to him, he will be very happy, and he knows what we've tried to do. We live with the government having not come to his aid for the purpose of time. A very quick one on Nkrumah and Jerry. I've never made mention anywhere that Nkrumah has not done anywhere. I said, and I've mentioned that some of the things at that time was a bit overambitious. However, if we had continued from there, so there is no mention from me, because I understand the works of all the most of the African presidents, especially the Pan-African time, that I've never mentioned Dr. Nkrumah didn't do well. So correct that impressions. Now let's go to the benefits of the Western education to us. You would recall and remember that your education curriculum was designed not by you. In the same way that your religion called Christianity, or somehow or the Islam, somehow also some people, Christianity, let me call it, in Islam not, but Christianity in general, you were taught on a lot of things were given to you, being translated. When it comes to the education itself, a white man that colonized you designed your education, designed your curriculum, designed your school, designed the subjects. However, after they left, 67 years in the history of Ghana or in the history of other countries, you have the chance and the power. They left, and they left you with a language that is their language. And then you had the right, after you have your own constitution, either to proceed or to change the language that was left. While the education, yes, of course, it has benefited us because you didn't have any other alternative when you were born. You came to meet what they left. But our governments, our leaders, our forefathers, the language factor, which the Europeans, for instance, Romanian has not taken English as their first language. Bulgarians have not taken English as their first language. Neither has Poland done that. So if you look at in the context of European typical case scenario, look across board all the 43 countries of the whole Europe. How many of them speaks or learns or go to school with the other one's language? They learn language as a subject. That is a Dutch. He learns everything he does is in Dutch. So if they are learning German, German or the Dutch becomes what? A subject. If they are in Russia, Russian is their native. So they will not go wrong. The French will not go wrong learning in French and learning English as a subject. And then it goes and it affects, it trickles down on the other subjects that they're doing. In our case, we were lazy enough and so lazy enough that we have broad-based languages. Indian is not doing with English, it's a subject. Pakistani is not doing with English, it's a subject. They write their degree programs, PhD programs in Pakistani language. Iranians are using the Persian language to do all what they want to do with it. Romania does the same thing. Most of the countries in Europe, including Turkey, they use their own language to design their own school curriculum. And all these countries that I've mentioned, including that of the Arabian Peninsula and the Mediterranean countries, all of them were colonized alongside you and I, and we had independence more than them. Typical case, the Dubai, the Emirates, the Kuwaitis, the Saudi Arabians. They are teaching their people, their children in the what? Arabian curriculum. If you want an international flair and you want to go to international school and speak English, that is up to you, to your cost. But as look across board Africa, How many countries on the continent of Africa have designed and made sure that political will, they will stick to the most spoken language and let their children school with it? Design what will best suit to our education, because technology is a template. Research, scientists is a template. Whereby Wright and the brother, the aircraft that they designed, that is not the aircraft that we are flying on today. There had been modernization. So Chinese did not write and do their inventions in any language than the Chinese. Japanese alike, Koreans alike. So if you ask me the benefits of the Western language and the Western education to us, I won't talk and discuss about the extremist approach of the Boko Haram, who says that Western education is a sin. That one is a little bit of a nonsense. But we have the capacity, the ability, and we have the modern day intellectual that can stand and withstand with the test of losing our own motherland and our own mother tongue. So it makes it difficult that up to today, unable to pass French, unable to pass English, or using English to write mathematics and pass, using French to write mathematics and pass, if you are not able to sail through your education bar stops there, on that grounds, I will say that Western education has no support. But notwithstanding, they showed you ABC. But any native language in Africa has also the ABCD in our own language. So what stops you from using your language to learn? There is no stick and there is no whipping lesson on our neck that if you don't use the English, we will come and then decolonize or take the country back. It is not like that.
Correct. Yes.
This brings to the topic of why the English have not told the world, why the English within Europe, they have to leave the European Union. It is not anything but it was a language barrier which made it difficult for English diplomats to be able to have positions. It is because of English language, which that is the only language the English diplomats came to the European Union Commission, etc. Whereas a German diplomat comes there and speaks about 5 languages. Barroso was speaking about 8 languages. Across board, any Dutch diplomat that is on the Belgium, on the European Commission, speaks about 6 languages within Europe. But when we bring an English, only 1 language. Including the French, they speak more languages when they come to you. But English, we're not doing that. So when it comes to European Union Commission voting, they all move and vote that you can't come and speak only English. That was the English frustration. It's a topic, Dr. Susan, we'll deal with the fallout of the European Union, how the English left it. It's not some of the stories that you people know out there. So the language itself, or the subject itself, it's a curriculum designed by somebody and left. We're doing mathematics, we're doing geometrics, algebra, and all those kind of nonsense. But other countries are not doing that. And yet their kids are smart. Japanese kids don't know anything called English. But Japanese is not an international language in the world. It is spoken only in Japan. How come Italian kids are smarter than us? Italian language is spoken only in Italy. How many Italians, including their politicians, even speaks English? They don't. But their kids are smart. So my brother, the benefits of Western education, of course, they gave us the education. They designed, they taught us, they built our training schools and training colleges, etc. But having left the soil of Africa for over all these years, it is also incumbent on our neck for us to have redesigned and changed and try to do things different than the way to keep to the old status quo and the template. So if we decide to stick to the template, then one would say that whether we like it or not, benefit or no benefit, we are forced to call that we benefited or still benefiting us. But ironically, we have the chance to change and make some of our languages. Look, any child growing with a mother tongue will not learn any language, will not learn any subject and get it wrong. That is the difference that separates between us and the European kids and then the Americans and the Asian kids. Chinese kids are not smarter than us. They are smarter because they can understand the teaching in their own mother tongue. So it is not a hassle. But in our case, The child is speaking already a mother tongue at home, goes to school and then forcibly have to speak another language. So that language is not only a spoken language, but they have to learn the grammar. Having learned the grammar, they have to learn the construction with the grammar. Having learned the construction, they are telling you that speak Queen's English. The story is not different, Mr. Kofi. Being a Ghanaian, let me address you here also that. Go to our Ghanaian parliament. How many parliamentarians out of the 275 speaks on the floor of parliament? Because a good number of them, they speak bad English. And because of the bad English, they decide to become what? Deaf and dumb at the parliament, the floor of parliament. Why? Because they did not go to Cape Coast schools. So they are afraid to speak in the public. They didn't attend Achimota. They did not go to Presec. They did not go to Adisadel. They did not go to Wesley College. They did not go to a Holy Child. So they cannot speak. But nothing stops them to speak the local language, which they are representing the people in the parliament. And for that matter, you have 9 languages in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana that you can speak 9 dialects, untranslated. Davani, Ewe, Ga, Akan, Ekwapimchi, Frafra, and then Wala. 9 languages you can speak on the floor of Ghanaian parliament without consulting anybody, without any translator. It is up to the other parliamentarians to go and find the translations of it. But we force ourselves, we induce ourselves under undue duress to speak English. Some of them speak English to the extent that their tie will even burst from their neck. Why? Who is forcing them? Nobody asked them to speak that language. And that goes into the thinking of our education ministry, that we feel that without English, and if you are not able to pass English, indeed, English is what you are using to do mathematics. And we have chosen mathematics and English as the only step that you can advance in African country, any school. So if you fail the two, go back to your mother's farms, either to be a farmer or a mechanic or a painter, unprofessional painter for that matter. Respect to all painters, but then you do the non-professional one. So the education, it is nobody's making not to use our mother language to learn, but it is because we have been lazy and so relied on what the white man left us without any modification. So if we have anything to push, we must be prepared to modify our education to have a total and a full benefit. Either than that, we only learn how to write reports because we are only oral oriented. And that is the education we have. We can rattle and write reports. But when it comes to application of the intelligence acquired, we cannot apply. We don't know how to manufacture. We cannot put pen and put this. We do not know. But we have learned that if you want to do this, pen, you do this, you do that. But give them, they cannot. That is why University of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah University, one of the most brilliant technical universities on the continent of Africa, they haven't produced matches. Just common matches to sell, they don't have. Tell me one single production that has come as a University of Ghana, Technical University of Ghana, their product. Show me one. So yes, we benefited. We are producing graduates. We are producing lecturers who can lecture, who can write reports. But those reports does not do anything. So we still have to fall back on the Chinese polytechnic students to come and be a consultant on polytechnic student in China, to be a consultant on PhD engineers when it comes to road engineering. So it is what it is. So that is what, whether it has benefited us, I think the public or the listeners would also have something to say. And it is not only Ghana, across board. The example is almost every country in Africa, including Dr. Susan Tata's Cameroon. They also rent French reports. They cannot manage.
Tata is Africa. Susan Tata is Africa. I belong to. I'm a child
and then the last question was about the central bank.
Yes.
That he asked of Bank of Europe. Africa has African Development Bank, ADB.
AFGB.
Yes, AFGB is another story. Individual countries have their central bank, if that is what you mean. But then the bloc, as let's say West African Bank, we're supposed to be seeing North African Bank or Bank of North Africa, Bank of East Africa, Bank of Central, Bank of South Africa. Those ones are to be seen. But then united as the Bank of Europe, it is because the European Union, when they were voting the commissions of the Europe, where they went to sit down and vote and check the countries with a strong economy, when they were voting on the countries with a strong intelligence, strong police, and the countries with a strong economy and all that, they did diplomacy. They did for France, take Strasbourg, European capital, take Belgium, European, parliament, take Holland, European Central Police, take Germany because of the economy, European Central Bank. That is what they did. Our own, if we were to have, we have United Bank of Africa, but that's a private enterprise, let me call it. But then what you are talking about, what you are looking for, you are comparing the Bank of Europe or European Bank in Frankfurt. That one, it's also another thing that African Union, we have sat down, and then up to today, there will be also an argument as to which country would or should such a bank be situated. But AFGB, as we said, exists. But then the effect and the power of it, as the European Union is supporting the economies and then the economic related issues of the European member states, that one, it is a difficult thing. That is why African countries still cross over the Mediterranean to Asia, to Africa, to America, and to Europe to still go and borrow with skyrocketing interest rates. Whereas if we were to have that consolidation and stop the stealing that our monies are out, and then if we have a bank like that, it would have done us a great service and then support our economies and our currencies. Unfortunately, it has not been the mind. So each and every country is hanging on their own central bank. That duty is only to know how to put up letters together to go to IMF to borrow, or to go to World Bank to borrow, or to go to China and borrow, to go to other countries and borrow. We could do that. We have the financial muscles, we have the mineral resources to back all over Africa to have such a bank stronger than European Union with its capitalization or with its resources or the seeding money. But it is not a political way for any of them to do, because they cannot steal money. They can't steal money from their countries if they go for borrowing or to go for lending or whichever way that you call it, because consultants will work on it and collect percentages which they will go back behind and share. So if they are to do that in Africa, they will be exposed. So that interest and the political interest is not given out there.
Yep. Good. I just want to cut short into this conversation and give a shout out to all the Pan-African queens, daily TV queens. I mean, you don't want to believe it, Farouk, but we have a whole bunch of Pan-African daily queens here every day, pushing out the comments, the buttons, the everything. I want to shout out to Kobongo Sauce, the Queen of Equatorial Guinea, Sylvia Baker, Queen Irene, Cathy, Grace Jaravaz, Deb Huggins, Rachel, Therese, you know, all these are our queens on the Pan-African Daily TV. Dasita, Mafo Adi, Dr. Arikana Shikombarikoa, Dr. Mata Namunjebo, Helen, David, Vivian Goa, Jodel. I see Jodel. Jodel is there today. I want to give out a big shout out to all the queens on the Pan-African Daily TV. Hey, I mean, this is actually the continent that we're building, and women are positioning. They're not saying too much, they're in the background, but if you see the work that they're doing on the Pan-African Daily TV, I cannot thank you enough. I can't thank you enough, Queen. I mean, if we continue in the spirit that I see us here every evening, hey, nothing is going to be above us to give our kings, these ones that are talking, you know, the push that they need, and us, just, you know, us now, we're very good, talented in internal organizations, internal ministerium, internal ministers, you know, and you know the internal ministers are the most powerful, not the ones that we see in front, but the ones that fix everything behind. And that's why they call us the kitchen women. They don't know what the kitchen produce the best that fits the world. So I want to shout out to you, Queens. I'm so proud and humbled by your contribution every day, all your comments, everything that you do, everything that you support here. And so, yeah, that was the point. That was the point. So over to you. I see. Okay, there's a question coming in. I have to pick this one. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
How are you? Long time. I listen to all the shows.
Okay.
I'm here. Sometimes I try to call, but yeah, I just keep up the good work and then thank you for everything. You know, as always, this is a task. It has to be done, and then you are doing a great job. So, hello.
Thank you.
So yeah, I like the languages you're speaking. Yesterday you were talking to Dr. Kanaren,
Yeah.
and then he is good. I know him before. And then this college he was talking about in Ghana, I know the person as well. You need to invite one of the guys from there too. Hello, my brother Wahab.
Yes.
Last time I spoke to you about the Mali, if you remember.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yes.
me, Lloyd from Malawi.
Okay.
Today I'm different. Yeah, I agree with you that we need to do with our languages. I don't know how we can do it in Africa because there is intelligent people there, but I think the language we are learning in is a problem. We learn in a foreign language,
Yes.
and it's not easy to understand some of the units, the subjects in maths and all these. I give you an example. I was traveling one day in Tanzania, going to my country, Malawi, from Dar es Salaam, and then I was told by the police. You know, then I was not awake, but then the policeman said, "Oh, fine," and then we were having this conversation, and he told me like, "Oh, you don't have a national identity language, so, but you know, being ignorant, not all this and that," and then it's the thing that they said, which I felt like, oh, we don't have our national pride. Or you say you speak in foreign language, all this and that. And when we speak in our own language, we do all this and that. But then if you're not awake, you will not see what someone is saying. And then over time is when I realized that, okay, I still remember it because it was a while ago, a long time ago. Remember that we need our own language. What the policeman told me that time, I said, okay, he educated me that we need to be proud in our own language.
Yes.
Although I speak some Swahili a little bit, because I'm from Malawi and neighbors with Tanzania, and then sometimes we travel to Kenya, so I know Swahili a little bit. But then we need, so this is the problem with Africa. We can't learn some of these languages. We are, as you said, as the Wahab said, we're just people who write reports, but we can't like put the things into action because we learn in foreign languages. This is the big problem. So I agree with him. So, but the thing, how are we gonna do it? How are we? Because it looks like our leaders, I call them misleaders myself, because they are misleading us. They are not doing enough to improve the well-being of us Africans. I'm not Malawian, I'm African. I belong to, like Susan said, I belong to Africa, not Cameroon, or not to Malawi. I belong to Africa, so I belong to Africa. So how are we gonna, as a people, change this? And then one other thing which is on the side, how can we do to help Dr. Rikana to be the AU representative than the one who is current? Because they are the misleaders in the end who vote. But how can that be changed? How can we help so that she can be the new General Secretary for the AU? These are my question because, like,
Okay.
there's some misleaders who vote. So they will not want to change because they don't want someone who is like firebrand like her, who wants change, you know, who is for the people, not for themselves, you know. My brother Wahab, thank you.
Thank
I hope
you.
you remember me from the last time of the conversation. So these are my questions to you.
Thank you, Floyd. Thank you.
Okay. Well, pleasure hearing from you once again, my brother. You asked a question why, and that question why had always been the subject, the whys on the African continent. If you ask them, they would tell you that plans are in the pipeline. Every time you ask an African politician and they don't want to answer you, they tell you that plans are in the pipeline. And then we see the light at the end of the tunnel. That tunnel is still choked. The pipeline is still choked. So water is not even flowing through the panel anymore, the tunnel anymore, or the pipe anymore, because they put too much plans in the pipe. It is very simple. Why? What we can do in my proposal or in my view is simple. The African continent have blocks. The ECOWAS is a block. Central African republics have their block. Community of the East African states, the SADC, the North Africans, for them, of course, they joined the Arab League. So if Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, and all these countries have what is called WAEC, West Africa Examination Council. Indeed, individual countries accept, if it is the senior high school certificate, Ghana accepts the one from La Côte d'Ivoire, Côte d'Ivoire accepts the one from Ghana, and Ghana accepts for that to enable us go to one school in a different country within the sub-region. So what does it tell you? It tells you that indeed it's a WAEC, but the exams we are writing, the geography paper in Ghana, it is not the same geography paper in La Côte d'Ivoire. The questions are different, but we talk about the standard that they see it as equal standards. But literally, every country is writing an individual exams on its own. So therefore, if the WAEC accept this, like the Europeans have accepted it, so the European student that came from Austria and graduated in Austria, SHS, would not have a problem to go to Romania and continue with the same thing. They need only 6 months to learn the language of that land as a second language and begin, or most of the courses now, European Union, you can go and do your language. Your native language will still be found in that university. Programs are being arranged, aligned for you to continue from there. In our case, so look at the interesting scenario for even for African continent is that, Dr. Susan, we have the commonest language that sweeps across over 10 countries. It doesn't exist anywhere in Europe or any part of the world. That is my biggest problem. If you pick, let's leave French and English aside. Let's pick the wider, the louder, and then the traveling local languages. Pick Hausa. Niger speaks. Nigeria speaks. You can get it in Ghana, Togo, Benin, La Côte d'Ivoire, the Hausa community, so big all over. The Fulanis is spoken all over West Africa. The Bambaras, the Creoles. So you can get good number of languages, call it a dialect, that are spoken across many countries in Africa. East Africa, Swahili sweep across all over. So is it difficult for the community of East African states to say that let us now all adopt our school, our exams, our schools in Swahili, because Kenyans speak. Congolese, a lot of them speak Swahili, isn't it? Tanzanians, they speak Swahili. You will get Rwandese who speak Swahili. You will get a Burundian who understands or speaks Swahili, or certain level. Lingala, for instance, it sweeps across that region. Arab sweeps across the whole of North Africa. So where is our problem? So if you have Hausa as a base, or even in our country by country, Ghana, about 70, 80, 90%, unless one wants to be mischievous and diabolical politically, they speak Akan or they speak Twi. When they are looking for political power, they go to every politician in this country will speak Twi. When they go to radio station, they will speak Twi. But when they go to other places, they say they don't understand, they start speaking English. So let's look out for one common denominator, one common language denominator that will set the base of that country's education to enable kids easily to use that language to go to school. 1 + 1 in their native language from their mother tongue, they won't get it wrong. So they will not write mathematics and get it wrong.
Correct.
2 + 2, 4. If they are learning it in their native language, they will not get it wrong. But we have schools in the bushes, in the villages, in the hinterland, in Africa, where still some places the children need 15 kilometers walk. So there's no schoolmaster there. That teacher or people teacher or the master hasn't passed his mathematics. He did not pass his English language. How does he teach these children to pass? And the time early development, we call it the early childhood development. The child will waste everything. By the time he gets to the bigger city, it's already 9 years or 10 years. The foundation is already poor. So he will fail mathematics because the English is not supporting. He will face English, he will fail in English because the master didn't give him the basics. So if such a child brilliantly were to learn in their own mother tongue, regardless of where they live, they will do well. The teachers will do well. Their mother can also teach them at home. Not an African mother who is an illiterate, as we so call this, an illiterate because he is not speaking English. She's not speaking English. That is a stupid thinking. It's not. She's an illiterate because she cannot speak English.
Yes.
She's an illiterate because she cannot speak French. How does somebody who does not speak a foreign language of the colonial master becomes an illiterate?
Oh, yes.
And the person speaks her own dialect. And they don't speak our dialect. So if we teach the children in the mother tongue, the child comes home, the mother, we are calling them illiterate, can help them with the homework. It is a common sense that the homework, the mother can teach the homework because the mother herself went to school where she was taught in a local language that when you have 5 and you reduce or deduct 2 from 5, you get 3 in her local language. So how does it become difficult if the child comes from school and asking the mother, the mama, how much? What is the answer to deducting 2 from 5 in the local language? The mother will say that it is 3. But we've declared the mother already an outcast because she doesn't speak English and French. This is where the problem is. So it is about time, again, for our leaders to be prepared, our education ministers to face, because the interesting thing is that nothing stops us from saying that we are going to the books of our own or teaching ourselves. Makers of civilization, the Egyptians started writing their own thing. They didn't consult anybody. Egyptians, a country that went post-colonization, Botswana, their kings, 3 queens, went to the Queen of England and said that we'll use the Tswana language. We are not prepared to speak English. Our language is beautiful. We'll learn, we'll do this in our language. They went to the British Queen and called the bluff. So where have we gone wrong? That we cannot. because there is no embargo on any country for using your own language to teach. That doesn't
Absolutely.
attract any embargo. Dr. Susan, it doesn't attract any embargo. You've not committed any political crime. You've not committed
Correct.
any how do we call it? Economic crime. You want to teach your people to the best of knowledge and understanding because Japanese use their local language, which is a dialect. Japanese language is a dialect because it's spoken only in the four corners of Japan. Korean is their dialect. Chinese is their dialect. It's not different from somebody speaking Creole in Sierra Leone as the person's dialect. So teach the children in Sierra Leone with Creole, but not to laugh at them when they speak English and get it wrong. And there's a limitation because when they go home, their mother is declared what? Illiterate. So she cannot support. So you see, over civilization is our problem. Over civilization. We have over civilized than those who civilize us, who colonize us. And that is what the problem is. Serious nations have done modifications. Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, they don't teach their children in English. English is taught as a language to enable them to transact international businesses, to enable them go on holidays and be able to communicate. But when they come home, the same internet, the same manufacturing of a television, the same manufacturing of any machine, the same building of any aircraft, it's a template. They use their local language to do and they get it right. Chinese have done it. So why can't we and we'll be able to do it? Russians don't speak English. So Russian is their local dialect, call it. It's not an international language because it's spoken only in Russia. So it's not different from Twi only spoken in Ghana. It's not different from Hausa only spoken in Nigeria. But in our case, as I've said, our languages are widely spoken across the border because of our traditional settings and closeness and then being one country, one people. Only border demarcations and colonial flag. Only flag. Only flag that separated us. And if you look at the flag, my African lady, yours is red, gold, and green. Go to Senegal, red, gold, green. Go to Ghana, red, gold, green. Togo, red, gold, green. You find the crowd all the same. One destiny, one identity, one people. Only flag and border and immigration uniform that separate us. But the languages, you haven't separated it. So why can't you use our language to teach? And it would have been easier even for the countries to do one exams instead of everybody doing their own different exams. And when you come from here to this side, no, we cannot do this. No, you can't do that. No. We are the cause, and still we are lazy and we don't want to modify and change. So we need modification using our own local dialect or language. And our children will be smart to compete with the world.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry we can't pick any calls again because we're rounding up. It's already almost 2.5 hours on this show, and I know it's because with Al, it's always gonna hit three hours and more. But please let us keep him and have him weekly. It's okay. It's okay. Now he's not traveling a lot. I know his schedule so much. We can have him for the next 3 months coming up straight on every week. Yes, yes. And
yeah.
and
Yeah, among those who are praying that I won't travel.
I'm just trying to agree with you. Yes, I mean, let us really borrow the words of Femi Kuti, the greatest legend who said, "Teacher, teach me no nonsense." I love that track. I love that music. You can go Google it on WhatsApp. And I saw Hubert also wrote it, teacher, don't teach me nonsense. That's one of the biggest tracks on from Femi Kuti that I loved, and Fela Kuti. And exactly that's the point. Now, you'll be coming up next to treat with us the way forward to adopting these languages. That is very important. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have to start, like we said yesterday. Professor Dr. Kaba said, okay, Kiswahili is already adopted. Maybe we should start with that. And he gave a 20 years plan, but a 20 years plan means we should be completed, that Africa is already overdone and our children should pick it up from there, meaning that we must start now. We must start now to realize the 20 years plan. Not that 20 years plan means we're starting in 20 years. So, Farouk, I think we would be having you next, really, just a lot to discuss with you. But this issue of language is one of the core things, no matter what we do. Look at Chinese. We can't even share secrets among us. Even us here, you can't share anything. What is it that we are not just as naked as we are? They know everything about our resources on the continent. They know everything, even secrets that we can speak. From home to school to the market to on the street. I mean, we are just English people in another color. So we have to stop it.
Chinese government now have opened Chinese languages laboratory in almost every African country's university, free laboratory. They bring Chinese lecturers to come and teach them. And some schools, including a country like Uganda, Chinese have become a subject forcibly in the second circle institutions. So why not Swahili? Why not Swahili in other African parts of the world? African countries adopting that. If Chinese now, given somehow peanut money for African education ministry to try to import and invoke the Chinese language into educational curriculum, when would the Chinese allow Swahili to come into their schools? When would they allow Chi to come into their schools? When would they allow Hausa to come into their schools? When would they force their children to go and learn Hausa? And we are being forced to learn languages that are far from us because there's a certain political interest that somebody collects. And for that matter, we have to do that. So already we are not passing exams in English. Already we are not passing exams in French. Is it Chinese that we will pass? It's a trading language. It is a commercial language. But not everybody is prepared to do trading. Not everybody is going to sell blankets. Not everybody is going to sell bed sheet. Not everybody is going to sell design shoes or belts. So therefore, if we are talking about viable, economically viable, traditionally viable, culturally viable language, it should be the language of the Africa. Dialect-wise, Swahili, Kiswahili has every language in the whole entire continent Africa. Every dialect spoken in Africa is found a word in Swahili. Every language, including the North African Arab, every language spoken on the continent of Africa find itself in Kiswahili language. Every language means a dialect, means a word or sentence, which is the same reason, the same meaning, a Kiswahili. Is there any beautiful language more than that we cannot adopt, but rather to impose and bring Chinese into our university, into our second cycle, and in primary schools? I rest my case. God be with you.
That is the first. That is the first note. I mean, we have a lot of things that we have to correct, but I think this one should be the first, and it starts even from us now and home. And we were already saying, starting from next week, we're looking for a Kiswahili teacher that has to be coming once in a week to start with us here, because we need to train the trainers. We need to train ourselves, and then we start training our children and training our communities. We don't have time. We don't have to wait for any reforms to be passed on this continent. We have already declared it, and we know we are on our own. Every energy, every resource that we can use to just push one thing forward, we have to do it. So I want to thank all of us for being here tonight. I mean, do you want me to look at the calendar now? Because I want you to give your word out here. I know that I own your calendar for 3 months. You already gave it to me. That's a privilege, and really, it's an applause that I want us to understand here that our brother, our teacher, our genius, our everything, Al Farouk is one of those that have sacrificed and has put everything. And he has told us, call me anytime except I'm out of the country. I will be here to give back anything that I know. So that is a privilege in this university. Kete is saying, Silva is saying, in the Pan-African University here, of course. And so he is on the list of one of our professors, and in everything. The best thing that we have with Al is that he's the overall. So if somebody is absent in one topic, get him. He's gonna treat it all. So that is the biggest gift of mother continent, of our ancestors, to get this kind of knowledge. Now, we were just saying about African greatness. Did we ever know? Tell me which kind of professor in this earth would have this kind of knowledge like this our brother sitting here. Tell me what kind of head is this? And we still underestimate ourselves and want some other person to teach us crap. Please, teacher, teach me no nonsense. Because we have the biggest teacher now. Yes. And we're going to learn from nobody. We're only going to learn from our own, from us to us, from us to us. We're not going to look up to any other person to teach us anything we don't know. We're going to go back to the school kitchen of our mothers in the village, and we bring back everything that we learned there. And that's one of the challenges we'll be doing on the Pan-African Daily TV. Please let us get our least unit of our TV, and we start these programs. We're going to go back to that education that our mothers taught us, because everything that we know to run the community and everything was taught us by them, and they taught us in our mother tongues. Yes. So I want to thank you very much for being here. And this evening, for the first time, I want to teach you a word in my mother tongue called miyaka. Miyaka means thank you. Miyaka. And that's what I'm telling you every day. And it's also in Swahili. It's also found in Swahili, like you're saying.
Any language in Africa, whether dialect or spoken language, you find it, you meet your word, your sentence, a reason in Swahili. You'll find it.
Thank you so much, Al. We're so happy. We're proud to have you. Thank you, my audience. Thank you, the queens of the Pan-African Daily TV. We're going to have a special session for us. Yes, queens, I promise you, let us keep this going. We're going to give ourselves a trip. It's our call upon us to liberate our people, and we are the queens on the move, and it's all due unto us to take our kings along with us. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you, Al. God bless you.
God bless you.
Keep his face shine upon all of you. We see us here. Tomorrow we are not going to stream. I'm sorry, before I give you the last word. Tomorrow we are not going to stream. We are not going to stream. Yes, we're having a holiday. Nyesha and I have some work to do to put on the programs for the next 2 weeks. And please, so yes, we are going to get back here on Tuesday with Maponga Joshua that we've missed so much. He's going to be telling us what he's been doing for all these 2 weeks without us. And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. And the whole week is already jam-packed. I don't know how we're going to program Al, but I'm going to see that into it again, because I think Thursday or something like that is still free. Good. Fine. So we see ourselves on Tuesday. God bless you, and keep it up tomorrow. Relax and stay fresh and get ready for Maponga next week on the Pan-African Daily TV. God bless you. Al, one last word.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Listen.
Al,
yes.
What is your good night word in Twi to us?
Sorry?
What is your good night word in Twi to us?
Good night word in Twi is that Deye. Sleep well. Deye. Deye.
Okay. Deye.
Okay. Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.